Hello and welcome to Dukascopy TV on the first day of the trading week. Well, European stocks are in the red and geopolitical risk is high. But what's happening to small and medium-sized businesses? Where do they fare at the moment? Well, joining me in the studio is a man who knows all about this, Christian Mustad of Edgar Brandt Advisory. Christian, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
The European economy is supposed to be on the up. As you heard in the intro, small to medium-sized businesses, where do they stand at the moment? Are they feeling that?
Well, I think I mean, there is a stark contrast between, what's happening in terms of the stock market, the indices, and things like, GDP figures and what SMEs see happening to their market. The levels, the pre-financial crisis level in terms of GDP and market growth haven't been reached again in the euro area generally, so it is a tough environment.
Okay. Which type of companies are surviving better in this climate and which aren't? I mean, obviously, small and medium-sized businesses have been struggling of late anyway because of still a lack of lending by some of the big banks, particularly in Europe, but all over the world. But what types of small to medium-sized businesses are surviving better than those that aren't?
Yeah, it is. I mean, there are generalization that can be made that I think are valid for pretty much lots of different sectors. I mean, yes, there are these sort of this sort of depressed environment still in Europe. Here in Switzerland, you also see that those that depend on China in terms of luxury haven't had a good year lately because of some of the changes related to the management of corruption. But there are categories of positions that work. I mean, obviously, one is companies that have developed or had before the crisis a strong differentiation on their market. The idea that makes them, or the product that makes them different from their competitors. These are progressing. It's obviously a minority, but these are progressing. The second category, which is also small in numbers, but I mean, since in many markets competitors are weak, those companies that benefit from having very strong investors behind them can actually take advantage of this period to actually buy market share. Take advantage of others' weaknesses and bet on the fact that they'll have a much stronger position when the recovery comes. So these that have that strength can actually strive. I mean, if you're not in one of those two categories, then you're still one of these guys left in the doldrums.
Well, I was going to actually ask, how are some of the more successful companies outdoing their competitors at the moment? What sort of things, what sort of areas are they focusing on now where those companies become more successful as a result and outstrip their competitors?
Well, the latest example or category I mentioned was really the guys that are typically can invest because they have the means, can invest in distribution, increase their footprint on their market, depend on what product or service you're selling. Even though this move may not be profitable now, you actually buy a successful future. If you're not doing that, if you're successful, either if it's technology, new development that allow you to differentiate your products or your services, or you take a different strategic positioning. And one of the key things happening now is really the big change around CSR and the issue of CSR, which are one big strategic avenue being taken by quite a few companies now.
And interestingly, this can be echoed in the employment of that company. I mean, we've got a graph here on the screen at the moment which shows that you could see between the small and medium-sized enterprises and the large enterprises, there was a big drop in 2009 in the large, but now the small and medium-sized and large enterprises are, appear to be going head to head. So there seems to be a balance there between the small and medium and the large, but at least with employment in those companies.
Yeah. I mean, clearly the SMEs typically are more part of the resilient part of the economy. I mean, even at the when the crisis was very intense in 2008 and 2009. I mean, economies didn't collapse completely. I mean, when you look at the figures, this is all really relative. So, big companies, internationally exposed, had to do some major structural adjustments. Yeah. If you're an SME, in whatever economy you're working or country you're working, you just feel a more gradual squeeze. Mm-hmm. There are those sectors which have huge leverage and use cyclical types of development, and these suffered more. But generally speaking, SMEs are sort of more resilient, but also face bigger challenges to find growth levers after the crisis.
Sure. So just finally, then, what if you're a business owner and you've taken a huge hit over the last sort of 5 years and so on, and you're looking to try and restart, mm-hmm. get back on the market as mm-hmm. such. How do you target recovery, mm-hmm. really, as an SME?
Mm-hmm. I think, to me, the really big item on the agenda now, and it's something which we're seeing because it's really the environment that and the legal framework and society that are imposing this on companies, is, as I mentioned earlier, the issue of CSR. This has gone in the last year or so. This has gone from something that was historically linked to corporate communications, sort of discretionary actions that company would take to sort of project the image of a good citizen, a company being a good citizen. Now, the thing is really consolidating. The law is actually evolving in the EU and in other countries as well, and it is a big plus for companies looking for positioning strategies, differentiating factors, to look seriously at what's happening in terms of CSR norms. There are quite a lot of them: ISO 26000, GRI G4, OECD, all that stuff. But that's all consolidating now. The law, in terms of different European countries, but as well as at the level of the European Union, is changing, and this constraint can actually be used as an opportunity for talking to one's customer base or talking to the market at large in a different way, and sending different signals and dynamic signals. And this is what we're seeing happening now.
Christian, thanks for explaining all that and coming into the studio once again.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That's all for the moment here on Dukascopy TV. Stay with us. We'll be bringing you further interviews and updates throughout the day. But for now, from me, bye-bye.